The thoughts and opinions of the guests on the Lens Living Diverse are the ones of the guest and do not represent the CNIB, the CNIB advocacy team, or the creators of the Lens Living Diverse.
It's the lens, it's the lens, it's the lens, gotta live diverse. It's the lens, it's the lens, it's the lens to live diverse.
You are listening to the Lens Living Diverse, a podcast brought to you by the CNIB advocacy team. Join Nisha, Vivi, and I as we speak to individuals with intersecting identities who live with sight loss as they share their unique stories. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Lens Living Diverse. This is Ben here, and I'm doing the episode solo. And I have my guest here today, Sophia. Thank you for joining me today on the Lens Living Diverse.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem, not a problem. And today is fantastic because we're going to speak about your journey and how you gauge that intersectionality of being a Black individual with sight loss.
Yes, it is. I feel like this conversation is not really spoken about that often.
And that's why we're here with the Lens Living Diverse. And that's why it's so amazing to have your opinion and your perspective.
For sure.
Excellent. So if you could share with the audience a little bit about yourself, your different intersectionalities, and who you are as a person.
Yeah, for sure. So, like Ben said, my name is Sophia Alexander. I'm funny enough turning 28 in a couple weeks, so I'm just kind of looking forward to that. I'm currently at CNIB as a placement student, and I'm studying within the BSW Bachelor's of Social Work program at Toronto Metropolitan University, short form TMU. And my journey with sight loss started when I was 12 years old, actually.
Mm. And with that said, if you are comfortable, what eye condition?
Yeah, I have glaucoma.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually diagnosed it as juvenile open-angle glaucoma. I believe I am not an eye doctor. I'm just saying what I remember.
And it's very interesting because obviously interacting with different people who are blind or low vision, there's all these different eye conditions, and some are developed as a child, like myself, and then some are later on in the years. And even with that said, just like your dynamic, your friends, your family, how was navigating that with the diagnosis?
It was quite interesting because the funny story is I actually got into a fight in school before I got diagnosed, and the girl actually punched me in my nose, and stuff started coming out. So my mom was like, "Oh my gosh, let's take you to the eye doctor to make sure nothing happened." And that's when we were doing the I forget what it's called, the visual field test where they have the letters on the chart, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, they noticed that I was able to look through it perfectly fine through my right eye, but then something was wrong with my left. And then that led to a lot of doctor's appointments just to find out that I was diagnosed with glaucoma. When it came to my family dynamic, since I was so young and I found out that my grandmother on my mom's side actually had it as well as cataracts, my mom didn't really know what to do. Um, and the older I became, the more she told me how guilty she felt because my mom was a single parent. So
Mm.
she did everything that she could to take care of us, but just one little thing was missed. And I even had to apologize to her because for a very long time I held a lot of resentment towards her because I was like the only kid that I knew that had like a visual impairment. And especially to being like a preteen, you're gonna have those teenage emotions and be what is going on? Why is this happening? Why do I have to handle this? Even to the point that I did experience bullying in school. Um,
Mm.
the most vivid memory I had was when I think it was summer school when the teacher wrote in red ink and I honestly couldn't read it. And the older I became, the more I realized it was contrast that my eyes were trying to like work with, but they couldn't deal with it.
Mm.
And there are just people being like, "Oh, why can't you read it?" Like kids just being kids. But in my head, I was like, "What is your issue? Like, I know I'm different, but you don't have to make me feel this way because I'm different."
And
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. And in the department I work in, it's next generation, and we're dealing with youth with low vision, and a lot of the emotions and the feelings that you made mention of, it's prevalent, right? It's
Yeah.
almost that lack of understanding. Oh man, like I want to be like everybody else. This is like not the norm, and you begin to have those feelings where it's like the resentment, why me, or oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what is going on? And then even incorporating, because you're a woman of what's your background?
So my mom and dad, they're both from Grenada. So I see myself as a Caribbean Canadian, and obviously being a Black female. It's a different level. Like I've never gotten a chance to really speak to other people in the culture who have sight loss, like besides you and Kia and Nisha. Like I think I mentioned it to her, like you, all of you were the first people I've ever met who are also
Hmm.
Black and had sight loss. So at first I was very emotional because I finally had that representation seen in front of me.
And it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I'm exactly like you. The audience already knows I'm of Ghanaian descent, West African, and it's like there was no one else.
Yeah.
It was just me, and I'm like, wow, like I don't even think anybody else exists.
Yeah.
And then when you see other people who are blind, low vision, and then the blackness as well, and they incorporate the
Mm.
culture, it's like, yes, finally.
Like finally someone gets it. I'm not
Mm,
just going around having family members call me yo blindy, and it's like um I like you couldn't think of any other nickname, like anything else. You couldn't call me shorty, like because most of my uncles are like over 6 foot, and I'm
yes.
only 5'5.5". So you
Yeah.
couldn't call me shorty. You couldn't make fun of my little gray hair showing up. We have to pick at my disability. Like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. And uh before actually I'm gonna go into kind of like the awareness of even when we look at the black culture and like the Caribbean and African culture. But
Mm.
first I kind of want to go into you being a black female and looking at that intersect of having low vision. Like what's your experience with that?
It's been a very it's been a very interesting experience to say the least. I'm gonna say it in the most kindest way possible because I've noticed within being a Black female, there's no room for failure. Like we always have to be on top of
Mm,
everything. Mental health is something that isn't spoken about within the Black community. So if you're having a low day, if you're feeling sad, like it's not spoken about. And then also having a disability, it's like, well, you have a disability, so what? Pick yourself up, get what you got to get done, and keep it moving. But
mhm,
there are moments in time where not only because I call sometimes I have like I call it like a like I say it as like a rough day
mhm,
where sometimes I'm having a clouded vision attack or my eyes are feeling really heavy or they honestly feel like sometimes they're burning. And growing up around my mom, like I love her to death, but again with the lack of awareness, knowing like, hey, your kid's tired, but from the way she was raised, it's like keep it moving, keep going. There's no room to be tired. You have to keep grinding, you have to
mm,
keep going, you know? So and I've noticed within like other Black people I've met, because with myself, I don't look like someone that has low vision. It's only when you see me use magnifier on my computer on my phone that's when you could tell something's off.
mhm,
So when I would interact with them, they're like, "Wait, what's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Well, nothing's wrong with me. I'm just having a low day," or "Nothing's wrong with me. I just can't see what you're writing." To the
mhm.
point that I know it's I know it's not really trying to be a form of ignorance. It's just a way of like it's just them not knowing how to understand what I may be experiencing.
And I hear you, and even though it is not being ignorant on purpose, it's
Yeah,
still exhausting to that individual to constantly get like, what are you doing? Where's your glasses? You were fine yesterday. What's happening today? What's going
yeah,
on? And it can definitely be exhausting. And the point that you bring up too, and this was mentioned in the past episodes, with Nisha and Vivi and Kia, and I know they made mention of even as a black woman, and to have that, you gotta stay strong as a black woman, and
yeah,
coming from that, and you gotta stay, and I see this as well. You gotta stay strong. You gotta stay graceful and having those societal pressures of this is what you have to look like, plus having that with sight loss. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Even what I was making mention, I guess the question I was asking before, or the thought I had before, the importance of bringing awareness to Caribbean and Afro or African cultures, as well as just like Black people in general. What
Mm.
do you feel that we have to do as, I would say, advocates to have that bridge of both disability and have that bridge of both Blackness as well?
I feel like it's just about being very transparent with our community, but also understanding that there still may be some generational unawareness that may come out when we speak to these people about it, you know? Because I can honestly say, for example, within Caribbean culture, like I mentioned before,
Hmm.
sometimes, not even sometimes, all the time, they'll use something that you might be uncomfortable or insecure about as a nickname.
Hmm. Yep.
Like they might call someone oh fatty or short man or dready or something, you know,
Yeah.
even to like going back to Caribbean history, coolie is a derogatory term, but I grew up calling people who are Guyanese, Trini, or like mixed with Indian descent that, not knowing that that's actually so harmful.
Hmm.
So I think it's maybe really, not even maybe, it is very important to just let them know that disability is a thing within Caribbean culture or Black culture as a whole. We can't hide it anymore, you know, and honestly, it's just about trying to a foster a narrative of curiosity as well as finding new ways to just help, you know?
I agree 100%. And definitely those different nicknames. And like you said, it's not something where someone's consciously trying to be ignorant and trying to bring someone down, but that's entrenched in our culture.
Yeah,
And it's so important. Like even the African culture, there's no real word for disability.
yeah,
There's no real word for disability. And I remember even when I was growing up as a young man, my parents would call me slow, or people around my environment would call me slow. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, you're slow as in like something's wrong with you, right?
mm,
But in translation with like the language that we spoke, Tweet, it was never really a word to say having a disability, or maybe not slow, but maybe abnormal.
right.
Yeah. And I believe, and just like you're saying, and I'm gonna harp on this, boom, 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 keep harping on this. I believe that as when we give people kind of that opportunity to educate and be like, yeah, those words are very harmful. Like calling someone abnormal means like I'm not like everybody else, and even why does that matter? And then at the same time with you, like how those nicknames can be harmful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Harmful and also sometimes very annoying, especially on like a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, very, very true. And even you were making mention of you being in the BSW course, the social work field. And
Yes.
I want to be like, stand up, social workers, everybody out there. The importance of Black social workers. Like, what's your opinion on that?
That is something that is very, very important that I've been seeing within the field. Well, the lack of in the field, you know? And for instance, just having someone you may feel safe around, you know, because living in a world that has so much colonialism, white supremacy, there may be times when you walk into a room and this can be on the same scope as disability where not everybody looks like you, meaning that not everyone may have the same experience as you. So having more Black social workers can also bring in very tangible and more innovative ideas and skills that can also hopefully change and shape the way different organizations and people are helped. I can even say, for example, right now I'm in a course that's called Critical Clinical, and it's taught by this very, very intelligent professor who also is a practicing social worker.
Mhm.
And you can tell with the way she's interacting with the class, her heart is in it, her soul is in it. She wants to make sure that we're learning everything in an effective way to ensure that we don't harm other people when we go out into the field. There's also another professor I have. She was the most down-to-earth, professional, and transparent professor I've had. And she also does equity and diversity courses, I believe, to help different businesses.
Yes.
But when she spoke within her class, it wasn't about just being performative to make sure we did the check marks, got our checks. It was more about being very empathetic and loving to her students. I will
Mm-hmm.
never forget, there was one person she spoke about a lot, the academic bell hooks, like rest their soul.
Yes.
And they have something called the love ethic,
Yes.
where it's not about showing a type of romantic love to clients. It's more of a personable love. And I do believe, like, whether it be Black men or Black women, we know how to love because we've seen our ancestors and our parents and people before us be through so much oppression and scrutiny. So
Mm.
it's not about us trying to be better than one another. It's about bringing everyone together. So I do believe, I know I may have gone on a tangent, but I do hope that more Black social workers or even within different fields do come together and show just the beauty of who we are as people.
Yeah, and well said, well said. And I love the fact that you bring up that love for your people, right? And it is so important to incorporate that in the field. And I'm thinking with your different intersectionalities, you were making mention of like bell hooks and other individual styles. And this may be a loaded question. Let me know if it's a loaded question. But even with that said, what's your style that you bring to the social work field, or even just when you interact with anybody, incorporating both your intersectionalities and who you are as a person?
Now I gotta think back to all the clients I've worked with, because to give more background about some things I've done in work, before getting the current job I'm at, I used to work with men who had cognitive disorders and addictions at a
Yes.
rehab facility. And now I'm currently working with young females who have been sex trafficked in human trafficking in a department for another social service organization.
Yes.
Um, the one thing I do mostly is just try to meet them where they're at. I always let them know I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to work with you. I'm not here to be a superiority figure. I'm here to support you, you know? So with being a Black female with a disability, with who's had her own share of like mental health stuff that's occurred,
Mm,
I my style is just meeting you where you are, showing you authenticity and integrity with not blurring the boundaries of being professional.
mm,
So I would say the biggest example was when a client was yelling at me. I don't remember what he was mad about. And he
mm,
was calling me like various different names, telling me that I am not worth more than 15 cents, how I'm
mm,
stupid, all this stuff. I just looked at him and I asked him, like, Ben, I'm just gonna use your name. I was like, okay, Ben, do you have anything else to say? And he stormed out and discharged from the program. And all
mm,
the other clients looked at me during the situation and they asked, Sophia, how did you not lose your mind during this? And I said, well, I don't know what demons he's going through or demons he's experiencing, but this is how he feels. And I'm not going to sit here and tell him that he's wrong. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm better than him, but I know not to take what he's saying personally because that's where he is. Another example was there was a client of mine who was just feeling very low and felt like she didn't have anywhere else to turn to because she just felt like everyone else was taking from her and she wasn't receiving back, you know?
mm,
And when it comes to very dark subjects, it's not easy to talk someone out of how they're feeling, but I feel like it's important to just listen and don't listen in a superficial way. Actively listen, hear what they're trying to say. And even if you don't agree with it, because there's so many different topics in social work that people agree with and don't agree with, but it's important to just look at the person and see them for who they are. And at
mm.
that moment, because this was a girl I was working with who is escaping sex trafficking, I just made sure I was there for her. I asked her if she wanted anything to eat, if she just wanted me to just sit with her, watch a movie, and just ultimately be there for her. And that's just been my style, just meeting people where they are and just trying to be just authentic as I can be.
And what you said with both your stories and just that's very impactful and that's very powerful. And even the fact that you have someone who is going 100 on you and to have that reaction, and that is some great skills and a lot of what we should learn just as human beings, right? Not to take things too personally because people can
Okay.
be in a place that they don't want to be. And even speaking of like intersectionality, right? Like
Yeah.
some situations can be very triggering to people, or uh, situations that can hit people a little harder.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you telling those stories, and I really appreciate the style that you have. And definitely, like I know you said at the beginning of the podcast that you're 28. I feel like you're wise before your time.
I'm trying to be. Thank you.
Definitely with that patience, and even with organizations and like different companies that deal with disabilities, and even vice versa, Black organizations. How can we do better? How can we do better in really feeling, letting people feel that their full selves are in what we deliver and the services we deliver?
I feel like that was more of a loaded question than your other question. Um, I honestly like I one thing I've noticed with social services, it may look easy, but it's very complex,
Yes.
and with organizations, I understand they have to hit a bottom line and make sure that when it comes to certain things that their profits are being made or they're helping a right amount of people so they get enough funding.
Yes.
I feel like it's just, and this is just my own opinion,
Yes.
that we just need to stop looking at the financial gain of things and truly see what we're giving out to these people. And even to when it comes to being a staff member, are we actually really being like helped when we're at work? Is there certain programs, certain like accessible devices when it comes to disabilities that are actually being given to us? Or are we actually just finding our own ways to do things to make sure we're able to submit our final proposal or submit our our stats for certain things when it comes to work? So I think it's just we as a society, and I know this comes down to just what we learned over time is just once again not just looking at the bottom line, but looking at how we impacting people, you know?
Hmm. And I totally agree. I agree 100%. And I feel that as we still, or as we continue to have these critical thinkers such as yourself, I feel like we will be moving in that direction, right? Because your perspective is quite valued, and you definitely come from a place of so many different aspects and so many different life experiences as well as professional experiences as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so even more about your journey in general. Like we went over the fact your social work career, your family life, your culture, even moving forward. Just like what are some ambitions that you really like to take part of that incorporates all of you?
There's a lot. I'm that person that loves everything, doesn't have time to do everything.
Yeah.
um, I'm hoping that I can get into some form of advocacy one day when it comes to disability and intersectionality. Um, I'm also very into fashion, so I kind of started modeling on Instagram like 2, 3 years ago, and I haven't really promoted myself as someone with a disability yet. I'm just trying to really figure out how to do it, especially when it comes to media itself. I know when I'm hopefully when I do my master's, I'm just so focused on taking a break from my bachelor's.
Mm,
I hope when I complete that, I can go into therapy and just work with specific intersections and specific people to help them become the person they want to be. Um, yeah, it's pretty much where my brain is thinking right now, where I
Mm,
want to be later on.
yeah, and I love that multi-dimensional side, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I feel that sometimes when we're sort of in a spot that we're focusing on a field, everybody
Mm.
knows us as like, oh, you're the social worker, you're the social worker. Oh, what do you know about music? Or, oh yeah, why you composing music? Why are you doing modeling? Why are you doing acting? But it's just like, yo, we are multifaceted, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like
Mm.
it's I don't just think about social services all the time. Like I have a life, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And the one thing that I hear from what you were making mention when you were making mention of your stuff on Instagram, the
Yes.
fact that you made mention that you haven't mentioned or disclosed your low vision yet, and that makes me think of that balance, right? Because
Yeah.
nowadays we do get people who are like, "Oh, I'm the blind model," or "I'm the blind rapper, the blind DJ, I'm the blind golfer," and all that stuff. How
Mhm.
do you kind of feel about kind of having that balance of you being who you are, plus kind of having uh living with low vision as well?
It's been a long journey of just acceptance when it comes to myself because when I was younger, I did everything in my power to make sure no one knew I had low vision or no one knew I was going through certain things. But now I'm learning how to balance out how to love and accept every single part of me. It hasn't been an easy road, but it's something that I'm starting to really cherish about myself because one thing I do believe in when it comes to my own, like, when it comes to my own life is that not everybody's going to be the same. So why try to be like everyone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny that you say that because we have a society where it's just like everybody be you, be unique. But then when you're outside of the realms, it's like, okay, you're too much. You're like, yo, dialed it back. You're too unique. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And the
So,
funny thing is, I think a friend of mine made a joke a couple days ago where it's hard to be unique when if you look at certain clothing stores, they're all selling the same thing. And I'm like, that is very true.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so true. And it's like, how do you kind of put yourself out there? And like I even said with that question, like, how do you put it where it's like, this is Sophia, this is not Black Sophia, this is not blind Sophia, this is like Sophia who is black and blind. Like, you know what I mean? Or even if you don't feel like mentioning it or you don't feel like having that as your tag, right? Like
Yeah.
putting yourself in that place and like how do you feel with that said, like to kind of bring yourself to the table?
I think the biggest thing is I just don't really worry that much about labels as hard as it may be in the society because no matter where you go, people look at you and see and say and see the first thing that they notice, you know? So I think it's just knowing how to be secure in myself and not really worry too much about it. And then if things are mentioned, I'll talk about it. But if it's not really relevant to where I am, I just don't really worry too much about it. So I just really ground and take care of myself in that sense.
I love it. I love it. And as I keep mentioning, wise before your time and just the aspects of pretty much bringing yourself to the table, right? And the aspects of at the same time how to help your community. Amazing conversation with you, Sophia. The last question I have for you, for a person who is living in similar circumstances of yourself, what
Mm.
pieces of advice would you give them to kind of navigate the world when it comes to their similar intersectionality?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is honestly process your emotions when it comes to having sight loss or being blind. Because I can only say this from my own personal experience. I held on to that anger for such a long time. I missed out on really learning new things and learning different things. Like, for example, I've only recently now wanted to actually get in touch with someone to actually learn how to read Braille. Before, I was like, I'm not reading this. I don't want to know this. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to look at it because I still have some vision. Um, But that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is try your best if you have opportunities to get connected, learn about more things and more people. There are some interesting left. There are some blind and other disabled influencers online, which I've noticed. So if you ever want to try your best to Google some and try to just get involved through there. And if you have any other businesses that may give you opportunities to meet people who have blindness, take that time as well. And also just take the time to care for yourself because being someone who's BIPOC, this world wasn't made for us. And then also having a disability, you could see that the world isn't that accessible for us. So understand that you are worth so much more than the world gives you and just take care of yourself as much as you can.
Get in where you fit in. And I like to imagine it like bus seats where it's not enough space and you just kind of cramp yourself in. You're like, ah, I'm going to sit here no matter what.
Yeah,
Where can people get your social media and all the things that you're doing and you're up to?
sure. So I have the same Instagram handle on my TikTok and Instagram. I'm still getting better at posting, but if I'm not that frequent, forgive me. It is SophiaDynamic. So at Sophia Dynamic.
And that's very appropriate because you're a dynamic person. So once again, Sophia, thank you so much for dropping all your knowledge, and it was a pleasure having you on the Lens Living Diverse.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
And with that said, if you like today's episode or you want to re-listen to any episodes in the past, you could utilize any platform that you listen to your podcasts on. Or if you want more information about CNIB and diversity inclusion on a CNIB webpage, you could go to About CNIB and then you could go to We Are CNIB. And lastly, if you have any show ideas or any questions about the Lens Living Diverse, you could email us at advocacy@cnib.ca. Once again, advocacy@cnib.ca. So once again, everybody, thank you for listening to the Lens Living Diverse. Peace.